So good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Andrea Miller, and I'm founding board member of Center for Common Ground. So tonight we will be presenting Road to the Midterms. And on that road to the midterms, one of the first stops is going to be the 2021 election in Virginia. In November, Virginia will elect a new governor, a new lieutenant governor, a new attorney general, and all 100 members of the Virginia House of Delegates. We're going to be talking about the strategy that I've come up with to try to deal with what is going to be one of the strangest elections we've had in Virginia in a long time. And Virginia is a strange place. I live here. So for me to realize this is going to be a really odd election is saying something. So let's get started. For those of you who have been around for a while, you know that Center for Common Ground has a lot of projects. We have our internship program, which is Students for Justice. Those of you who make phone calls, who text, who write postcards, you're part of the Reclaim Our Vote campaign. When we are in the middle of major GOTV, frequently in rural areas, we run a billboard campaign. We have an app called Vote Force. And tonight you're going to see the new app that we are looking for because of all the different things that it does, in addition to relational organizing. Vote equality is one of our campaigns. And one of the incredible things that they brought with them was the RVG, the notorious ruthless vote getter, which is going to be a major part of our strategy in the city of Richmond, and we may end up sending her down the road to Hampton Roads. So let's get started. Again, our mission here at Center for Common Ground is to empower underrepresented voters to fully participate in democracy. For those of you who worked with us in 2020, you sent 9.4 million postcards to voters for voter registration, pledged to vote, vote by mail, and GOTV. You made 1.7 million phone calls and sent 2.9 million text messages. And for that, we thank you. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the statewide races that are in Virginia. We're also going to be looking at numbers. I can't help it. I love numbers. We're data driven, so I would have to look at numbers even if I didn't love them. Since I love them, then this is one of my favorite parts. I will try to move through it relatively quickly so that I don't put you all to sleep. But please understand, when I am looking at my numbers, I am in heaven. We're going to be talking about democracy centers that are in Virginia. Originally, we weren't even going to have any democracy centers in Virginia. When I realized what the statewide ticket is going to look like, we now basically have 3 democracy centers in Virginia, and we might need to open a couple more. We're going to look at a new app for us, Impactive, and we're going to be looking at upcoming events. I don't know what possessed me, but I have gone back to doing lobby training. Well, I think what possessed me is all the work that we are going to need to do at the federal level to try to get our voting rights bills passed so that we'll actually be able to vote in the 2022 and subsequent elections. So let's take a look at Virginia. All right, now the Virginia statewide candidates. On the conservative side, we've got Glenn Youngkin, who has probably bought every ad that one can buy on television. He's running for governor. Winsome Sears is the nominee for lieutenant governor, and Delegate Jason Myers is running for attorney general. The GOP decided they would not hold a primary this year. Instead, they chose to do a private caucus where basically the party picked their voters because they wanted to ensure that they got a very diverse slate. So, yes, the Republican slate has he's 60, but he looks young. They have a white man, a Black woman, and a Hispanic man. The Democrats, life got interesting on that side. Terry McAuliffe, the former governor, is running for governor again. We have Hala Ayala, a Black Latino woman, running for lieutenant governor. And then we have Mark Herring, the incumbent attorney general, running to be attorney general again. Now, when we throw an independent candidate into the mix, who is a Black Lives Matter candidate, whose brother was shot and killed by police, that adds a whole nother level of many, many, many different ways that this race can play out. In 2017, Terry McAuliffe won because there was an independent candidate running more on the Republican side, Robert Sarvis, who siphoned 4% of the Republican vote away from Ken Cuccinelli, which allowed Terry McAuliffe to win. In 2021, Terry McAuliffe has his own version of Robert Sarvis in Princess Landing. So this is going to be a very, very, very interesting race. If you live in Virginia, every 5 minutes, you see Glenn Youngkin on TV. You see a lot of his signs in the country and even in some of the cities. What you notice is there is a gubernatorial race coming up, and you pretty much don't see the Democrats much of anywhere. Now, what I'm looking at, I love my numbers. In 2021, we had a primary that brought out less than 500,000 voters. Again, that's relatively typical for Virginia. We have 5.4 million voters, and for whatever reason, most voters normally do not vote in the primary. The third column is where you really see the vote. All right, now I want you to look at 2015. I want you to know where we were. In 2015, 1.4 million people showed up to vote in the general election. All right, that's all. In 2017, when we took the entire top of the ticket and came within one vote of taking the House, roughly 2.5 million voters showed up. In 2019, we were again around 2.3 million. Now, in 2020, that's a federal election, not a state election, 4.5 million voters showed up. So Virginia can vote if and when we want to. So we're going to have to work really, really hard to try to get people to want to vote. I am estimating that our turnout, in order to have this race come out in a way that we will be happy with the end legislative results, we're going to need to turn out 3 million voters. So we are going to need to surpass what we did in 2017. So that's the job. As I said, there are 5.4 million registered voters in Virginia. 28% of those voters are BIPOC, Black, Indigenous people of color. 900,000 are African American, 236,000 are Asian, 3.9 million are not community of color, 237,000 are Hispanic, and 465 are Native American. So when we look at our community of color population, the largest block is African American. In Virginia, the Asian and the Hispanic population voting age is almost identical. And I just broke it down into who are the voters, what percent of the population do they represent, and how many of them are consistent voters. And by consistent voters, I mean they are 2 and 3 out of 3 elections. So I already said we've got 3.9 million non-community of color voters, making up 72% of the population, and 2 million of them are pretty darn consistent voters. Next, we've got our 900,000 African American voters, and they're 16.67% of the population. Out of 900,000 registered voters, 369,000 are consistent. So that is a number that we are really going to need to push. Asian American voters, it is a very small percent of the population, 4.37. And again, not a lot of consistent voters, only 91,000. And when we look at our Hispanic voters, roughly the same percentage of the population, however, a smaller number of consistent voters. So we're going to need to push on that side as well. Native American voters, a very, very small population and fairly consistent voters for their population size. Now, our priority counties based on registered community of color voters. The prize is, of course, Fairfax in Northern Virginia, Prince William in Northern Virginia, Loudoun is in Northern Virginia. When we get to Central Virginia, we have Henrico County and the city of Richmond. So we will be sending postcards to those counties. We will be phone banking those counties, and we will be texting those counties. And while the RVG is in Virginia, she leaves on August 9th. We will be using the RVG in Richmond and Rico, and we will probably make a couple of trips to Northern Virginia. We also are going to be working in Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Newport News, and Hampton. Those cities are all in Hampton Roads or our ocean side of Virginia. Chesterfield is the county south of Richmond, and so that is in central Virginia. Our Virginia legislature and the entire House of Delegates is running for reelection. We have a very small majority. We have 10 extra members. It's 55 to 45. I very strongly believe that not only will we hold the House of Delegates, we might also pick up a couple of seats. The Senate is not running for election this year. Now, democracy centers. Democracy centers are what I am looking at as our answer in some of the smaller areas and eventually some of the other larger areas where we are working. What's a democracy center? It's in community, it is staffed by local people, and they provide year-round community engagement. We currently have a democracy center in Roanoke, Virginia. Roanoke has a relatively small population, but because the area is very small, it's an area that looks like we should be able to get good turnout by the work that our democracy center can do. We will be opening a new democracy center in Lynchburg in a location that feeds the homeless and very low income families. We also learned that that location, they deliver food to people who don't have transportation to come to the Lighthouse Community Center. So again, these are organizations that are very trusted, and they will be able to talk to the people that they work with about, let me check your voter registration status. Well, I'm not registered because I'm an ex-felon, and they will be trained to help people register to vote. In Virginia, 450,000 people lost their ability to vote because of a felony conviction in their past. Now, Governor McAuliffe did institute a program of restoration of rights in August of 2016 that was continued by his predecessor. Of the 450,000 people who had lost their voting rights, roughly 125,000 of them have been restored. The big problem is most of the people who have had their rights restored do not know that their rights have been restored and do not know that they are eligible to register to vote. So one of the really important things that we need from the next governor of Virginia will be to continue the pattern of restoration of rights. And the Virginia Constitution requires that the governor, and only the governor, can restore the rights of people with felony convictions, and they must be restored one at a time. Additionally, Felony disenfranchisement is in the Virginia Constitution, and we are in the process of amending our Constitution. So we passed the constitutional amendment HJ 555 in the 2021 legislative session. We need to pass that amendment in 2022. And then if we successfully pass it in 2022, it goes to the Virginia voters for them to accept it, ratify it, and then the Virginia Constitution will be changed. Richmond is a much bigger city, and there is a much larger area to cover than Lynchburg and Roanoke. So in Richmond, we realized we are going to need to bring the voting rights and restoration directly to where people live. So on August 3rd, we will be taking the RBG directly to one of the larger housing projects in Richmond. We'll be there from 9 to noon. I'll be there. Rick will be there. We are both voting citizen registrars, and we will be registering voters, and we will be checking people's status to see have their rights been restored. And if their rights have been restored, then we will be able to register them to vote. And then the RV will be gone until the beginning of September. We will then visit all of the housing projects. There are 10 of them in the city, and we will rinse and repeat, do the same thing again and again. And we will be opening mini centers in various areas of the city, because we realize no matter where we put one, Richmond has no good public transportation system, and many people never leave the area of the city where they live. So as I said, we realize we're going to have to bring democracy to their front door. Now, Richmond registry. We will make this PowerPoint and video available. So if you are like me and you love numbers and you just want to go crawl and roll around with these numbers, you'll be able to do that. What we are going to really take a look at, and what I'm going to focus you on, is the two rightmost columns. BIPOC turnout in Richmond. Richmond has roughly 81,000 community of color voters. When we look at the number, 30,000 of those 80,000 barely vote. An inconsistent voter generally votes in a presidential year. Everybody else is a complete non-voter. And then we also generated the numbers for Roanoke. Again, Roanoke is much smaller, and the area where we're working geographically is significantly smaller. Roanoke, 12,000 community of color voters, and out of those 12,000 voters, nearly 5,000 of them barely vote at all. So we will be working to really improve that in this election. And the city of Lynchburg is, again, about a little bit bigger than the city of Roanoke. They're going to have a slightly larger area that they're going to be working on. But because they see on a daily basis the poorest of the poor, we believe they will really be able in Lynchburg to help us raise these inconsistent and non-voter numbers way, way up so that we get a good turnout in the city of Lynchburg. Now, oops, where's my picture? Ah, my voter letters picture fell off. All right, Carrie or Nancy or Dee, I'm going to invite you to say a word about voter letters because my lovely picture did not appear or remain on my slide. So who wants to talk about voter letters from my team, what it is and what you can do with it and how it works?
It's super, and I'll find that, that's a screenshot slide and we'll post it as well, maybe screen share later. But it's a way to distribute voter addresses and scripts and the template for printing the label, all of which you need whenever you're doing postcards. It's a way to do that really automatically. You sign up or are invited to be a member of a voter letters room, and that room depends on where you live. It's organized by our regional organizers all around the country. And the room might be the Florida room or the Connecticut room or the San Francisco room, depending on where you live. And then once you're there, you can just ask for however many addresses you need, and they'll instantly be emailed to you as a PDF file, and you can print them off yourself. So it's a super easy way to get addresses anytime, day or night. A lot of people also live near somebody who makes postcard packets. And if you live near somebody who has postcards and can make you up a packet, you don't need to sign up for voter letters because you can just get your packets like you always do. And it will be your packet person who signs up for voter letters. So.
Thank you, Nancy. And you can find more information about who your regional organizer is from our website. And then there is a postcarding page where you can go. And there is a list of the regional organizers on the postcarding page. Now, there is a new design this year. It is very, very similar to our old design. The only difference is the new design has centerforcommonground.org on the vertical on the postcard. So a number of people casually mentioned last year that Vistaprint was not a union shop. So our board member, Katie Hornung, has just purchased a print shop. So she has a woman-owned print shop. And in October, she will be able to have the people in the print shop vote to make it a union shop. So we may not see that in time for our postcarding this year, for our postcards to have the union bug, but they will have the union bug next year. Now, what are the pricing? The pricing is going to be slightly more than Vistaprint. I will do some subsidizing of the work that we do with postcards so that if people want the new designs, we will financially have it make sense. One of the new things that we will be able to do for some of our postcards is we now have nonprofit mailing status. So we are exploring how can we have multiple multiple locations where we do our nonprofit mailing, so we can use our nonprofit rates. But we do have that approval, and we will figure out how we can make that work for folks. Now, this is what I've been spending a lot of my time on. There is an app in the App Store. It's free. It's called Impacted. It used to be called Outvote. And what is really great about this app is it has a lot of things that it does in addition to relational organizing. You can check a person's voter registration. You can collect videos. You can launch a website through it, and you can do social media sharing in addition to relational organizing, meaning any campaign that you choose, you will now be able to send and share this campaign with people on your address book. So you can text it to them. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to stop sharing that, and I'm going to pop over to Impactive. And great, I've got Impactive in the window. And this is what we plan to use when we canvass with the RVG, the Registration and Restoration of Rights Tour. So you can put in the voter's name, first name, last name, their approximate age, what state are you working in. All 50 states should be there. I'm not sure why some of them are not appearing. And then you put in the zip code. And you don't need to be connected to the internet. So this will be great for people with their phones who are going door to door. We're actually going to be sitting in the RV or sitting outside the RV, and people will be coming to us. And then when you search, it comes up with a voter. There might be a couple of voters. And then all you do is click on the appropriate voter. And now you'll see that voter's record. And notice I'm listed as a super voter. All right. So that is just one of the things that Impactive allows us to do. So I have a lot of hopes for that particular application. Now, we were talking about the democracy centers. The democracy centers will each have a website, and this is a prototype of a democracy center website. So every democracy center has a logo, there's a welcome. This is the main stuff that it does. People can join the mailing list. And then for each democracy center, information about the next upcoming election. Now, if you have ever had a reason to go and visit the Virginia Board of Elections website, you will know that while they provide all this information, they somehow felt compelled to put it in about 8-point type. So it was really, really tiny, very unattractive, and very difficult to read. We tried to come up with a design that made it not look daunting and scary, so people would be willing to use it. Virginia now has 45 days of early voting. So we also wanted to bring all the Are You Vote Ready functions right out in front. Voters can check their registration here. If they are not registered and they have a DMV issued ID, then they can register to vote online. If they have a felony conviction and they are not certain that their rights have been restored, they can use this button here and they can check, have their rights been restored? And if their rights have not been restored, they can request that their rights be restored. And I don't know if you remember, but this icon also appeared on Impacted. So on Impacted, we have the ability to check voter registration, and we also have the ability to check restoration of rights from an app that won't need to be connected to the internet on a person's phone. Now, Virginia, as I said, has 45 days of early voting. Here are the early voting locations for Richmond, because this is the Richmond Democracy Center. And because these are normally places where people have never voted before, we have photographs of this is what the building looks like, so that when you get there or you drive by, oh, that's it. That's exactly where I'm going. Election day voting is in precincts. So in Richmond, they moved some precincts, and we have an interactive precinct map. And in the Democracy Center, this website will normally always be up, and the people there will be able to help people and walk them through. Richmond, we opened a location that we were hoping would make sense to be the Democracy Center, but we realized based on where it was that it really wasn't a place where people would naturally go. Now, because we are dealing with people that are low income, we have a section here, Get Help. So Find Benefits will allow anyone to find out, are there any federal or state benefits that they're entitled to receive? The child care tax credit, again, very important for low-income families. We will be adding a new one, federal rent relief, because the moratorium on evictions expires on the 31st. Get vaccinated, and then the ACLU of Virginia. Now, for each Democracy Center website, the partner list will be many of these folks. Crusade for Voters and Save for All is only in Richmond. So, but Bridging the Gap is statewide. Vote Writers and Dem Labs, they're basically in California, but national. So each Democracy Center will have their own partners. Now, it's not here yet, but it's coming. There will be a portal that will link people to training. One of the things that a lot of the communities were saying is not only did their kids miss school for a year because they didn't have internet, but they missed out on applying for jobs. And they also were hoping there would be an opportunity to take some basic skills building classes. Some people may or may not know that I was a college professor for 30 years and I taught IT. And one of the things that I did was I developed e-learning courses. So I'm going to go back, revamp my training library, and it will be available through the Democracy Center websites. Now, I mentioned a lot of the people that we are encountering don't have internet. Some people that are rural don't have internet because it is not available in their area. Other people don't have internet because it's not affordable. We have separate proposals into Senator Kane, the Richmond Public Schools, and various other groups to provide not only internet, but to also provide a website that would give a training portal so that both children and adults would be able to take classes. So we're working on all those things. Now, a lot of you know Josie, and we will connect all these up as soon as phone banking goes live in Virginia, when we start offering canvassing in Richmond and texting. We also will be listing the legislative initiatives that are relevant to a particular area, and they will be right here on the Take Action page. As we go into 2022 and state legislatures go into session, not only will there be federal bills, but then there will be the state legislation underneath. So those are the Democracy Center websites. Virginia is first because Virginia has elections literally in 4 months. Right behind Virginia will be South Carolina, who has some very, very, very localized elections. And I think I may have one more little slide. Let me take a look. Yes, I do. Upcoming training. As I said, I'm doing a lot of lobby training. So there will be a class on August 9th, Lobby Training 101. If you've never lobbied before, or you just want to learn from someone who did it on Capitol Hill for years, our 101 course will be on August 9th. We will then be doing a Lobby Training 202 course where I will be teaching how to use the legislative research tools. That will be on Saturday, August 14th. Yes, folks in California, we heard you. It will be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, your time, instead of 7 o'clock in the morning. And then we will be doing a special lobby training on August 20th, how to do citizen lobbying around the federal voting rights bills. So that's my presentation. And what I'm going to do now is I will entertain questions. Christine, you got your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute. Christine, do you have a question? Nope. All right. That's the only hand raised I see. Other folks, if you've got questions, you can put them in the chat. Yes. When will texting and phone banking start? Phone banking is due to begin around the late August, maybe the middle of August. We already know what our targets are. We already have the phone numbers and websites that we need for all of those counties. So we'll begin getting those phone banks rolled out probably in mid-August, maybe late August, because early voting starts on September 17th in most Virginia counties. 45 days of early voting means for a November 2nd election, you can start voting on September 17th. And then I've got questions for the dates on Virginia postcarding. The Virginia postcards, we've got some scripts ready. Nancy, Carey, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, just that the addresses were made available today, and the postcards are to be mailed between September 1st and September 18th. Since early voting starts on September 17th, we don't want the postcards to get there too early. So hold on to them until September 1st and keep writing until September 18th.
Great. Ruth, you had a question.
Yes,
Ruth
hi, thank
Streets.
you. I love this idea about impactive. And now, is that something that's something I in California can use for Virginia, but is that something that people can use in California to organize, or, you know, any state to organize in any state, or is it specific to Virginia voters?
We can use impactive theoretically to organize in any state. Now, normally when we create a campaign, it becomes visible on the Impactive app. It may be if we want to do organizing in other states so that it doesn't look confusing and we don't have Georgia apps and Virginia apps and California apps all on the same page. It may be that.
Did Andrea freeze for everybody?
Yes,
Yeah, it froze.
Yeah. She freeze for me.
it's the
And if she's-
tornado.
I was going to say, if she's in my area close to Williamsburg, we're in the middle of a storm.
Yeah, in Ruther Glen.
Well,
Well,
Nancy, can you carry on for her with the slideshow, or can anybody else carry on?
I think the slideshow is done.
Can I ask you a question? She mentioned something that one of the volunteers asked about, who's doing postcarding, that there might be collective centers so that we can have a reduced price for the stamps because of the nonprofit status. I think she had
That's
mentioned
kind
that
of
might, will
so
that,
that's-
will that be in place for this, or should people go ahead and buy their stamps for this?
Go ahead and buy your stamps.
Okay.
It's very difficult to get a bulk mailing permit with nonprofit rates. You have to go to your local post office and fill out a lot of forms, and Andrew would have to certify and give you all kinds of financial information. I think it's like a 20-page application. And then your postcards would be mailed only from your local post office. It couldn't be used generically. So I know that Katie is trying to set that up in Richmond at the print shop. And so one option, if you live near Richmond, Virginia, there will be a way, we haven't figured this out yet, but if you wanted to deliver all your postcards to Katie and, you know, pay her to mail them using postage nonprofit rate. But it's not very practical if you don't live near Richmond, Virginia, because that's the only place we're setting it up. And it wasn't easy to set up.
It's a goal for the future.
All
Yeah.
right, I'll report that back. Thank you.
We looked into it last year and found it was complicated. And then Andrea tried to set it up and she said the whole application is like a nightmare. It's don't make it easy. It's really many, many pages of information the post office.
I've never done postcarding and I never thought of it before, but is it a problem if it's like not a federal election, especially if people are seeing the out-of-state postmark? Does that have a negative effect on people, or?
No.
We can answer that. Yeah, Carrie, go ahead and answer that the way Andrea answers it.
Well, Andrea has always said that that we're reaching out to people who often get neglected, and that actually seeing out of state is kind of like, wow, somebody wrote me a personal postcard all the way from California. How cool.
Great. Okay.
But it doesn't really work against. Yeah. And I think that the handwritten personal part of the postcards would counteract any kind of weirdness about them being from out of state. Anything else?
People are commenting about saving the chat, which you can do. We'll send an email to follow up. But if you go down to the bottom of your chat screen and look at the three little dots, and open
Nancy, I think
that?
they were talking about saving
was
the
the
transcript from the
transcript.
beginning. So I've saved that.
Oh.
I can
Oh, yeah,
send
yeah.
it to you as well.
Thank you, the live transcript, yeah.
If we have the recording too.
Nancy, Ruth Strauss has her hand up.
Ah, Andrea's back.
Andrea's,
Yay.
I think Ruth's question was, and Andrea can finish answering it, was can we use that impactive in California for California events as well?
Great. I saw Andrea starting to come back, but I'm not sure she made it all the way.
Right, I'm back.
Oh, yay.
No, we
Yay.
cannot use interactive for texting. It is much, much too slow. And they will only allow you to text people that are already in your contact list. So we would not be able to text from the voter file. So no, but we do have our own spokesperson, so we'll be able to do that.
Oh, Barbara made a good point. Postage cost is going up, so order stamps now. You can always order a whole bunch ahead because there'll be more campaigns after Virginia. And I don't know if folks have noticed, but the ones with the little houses on them and barns, the colors go really nicely with our postcard. So that's
Thank you for the Carrie.
it's my current favorite. But the anemone ones work fine too.
Right, excellent, excellent, excellent. All right, yes. So I'll be doing a lot more work with Impactive. I will probably become a beta tester for the company. There's a lot of things that it could do, but it doesn't work exactly the way it should. So I'll be working with them on that. So hopefully before the beginning of September, we will have a wonderful, wonderful product. And generally, once I beta test, that means I get free stuff. So if we have to have separate accounts to text in on the California Vision Campaign or other things, then we'll be able to get that at a very discounted rate.
Andrea, did you see the question, when will texting start?
I'll be going to a meeting tomorrow with Movement Labs to see what they are saying about 10DLC. I know they are still running a very, very large texting operation in Virginia, and it may make sense to just fold in with them depending on who and what they're texting. So I will talk to Yoni.
Oh, somebody said in the chat that Impactive is being used by Fair Fight Action to text people to support. You mean S1, right? It says SP1.
Yes.
But and I'm in California texting people in Colorado. Toby, thanks.
Yeah.
Will be one of our super texters.
And Andrea, speaking of S1, do you want to say something about the current phone banking available? That's, or anybody on the team, phone bank team, want to give a little?
Well, let me, and there you are.
Oh, I was going to jump in and say we are currently for the People Act calling voters of color in Arizona and helping patch them through to Senator Sinema's office to encourage her to do whatever is necessary to pass the bill, including amending or abolishing the filibuster. And so that's one thing that you can do for the People Act that we're doing. And then another thing, and this is for everyone, no matter what state you live in, is I'll put this in the chat, but you can text democracy to 33339. We have nearly 1,000 people who have done this so far. And doing that will sign you up for daily reminders to call your senators in support of the For the People Act. And regardless of your senator's position on the bill, we really want to increase pressure across the whole of the Senate and show that this is a huge priority for everyone.
Something very, very important to know that we really do need to keep pressure on because it's very important that they seriously look at reforming the filibuster. And even though virtually the entire Senate is signed onto the bill, it would amaze you at the number of senators who really aren't supportive of touching the filibuster.
On that note, Andrea, I can't figure out how to raise my hand. So I just wanted to add something, and I'm not sure whose phone bank I heard this on, but for Californians, also, in addition to doing the phoning and emailing, not maybe handwritten, but letters to Senator Feinstein, who has not supported changing the filibuster yet, are supposed to be more impactful. She's kind of old school. So for all those Californians out there, send her a letter as well.
She is leaning in that direction though.
I know. I called today and she's considering some stuff, but I don't know what it is. You know, talking filibuster or carving out, I'm not sure.
Yeah. If they do a carve out, then yes, it will allow us to get our voting reform legislation through. Almost nothing else will get through. And then I saw a comment, what was my take on President Biden's comment that we can out organize and we don't have to do anything with the filibuster. I'm part of a national DC group, and I will tell you, no one in that group was happy with those comments, which were just the most undermining thing he could have ever done. So let's hope he was off scripts, possibly off his meds. And he never does that again. Yeah, very disheartening. And I don't know if everyone has heard, but Senator Manchin, Senator Warnock, and I forget who the others are. They are writing a For the People Act light. Yeah, so I can't wait to see what this is. But
I
that
think you,
will.
excuse me, I'm sorry, Ms. Miller. Denise Harrington, did I hear you correctly? Could you just repeat that? You said Joe Manchin and somebody else is writing something.
Senator Raphael Warnock, and I don't remember who the other two senators are. They are writing a revised version of S1 for the People Act.
Okay, okay, all right.
Right.
Thank you.
No one has seen a draft or what is or is not in this new piece of legislation. So it will be interesting. But then again, the little darlings on the hill always are. It's never a dull moment with them. All right. Any other questions? Let me get the chat up.
Oh, I see Justin. Is that Warner is one of the others joining?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, so that was the press release. It's Warner, Warnock, Klobuchar, and Merkley.
That is introducing the secure integrity of local elections.
That may have been something else. Never mind.
That's from June.
Else. Right, and that's something else. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Ooh. All right. Yes. All righty. Or and a few. Oh, okay. I see that. Do we have any more questions?
Andrea, this is Arlene. I have 6,000 or 7,000 postcards, Reclaim Our Vote, the old power ones. So I'm gonna use them, even though they don't have.
Yes, by all means, by all means. Katie wanted to have something, offer something a little bit different, since she was ultimately going to be introduced as a new postcard vendor, and her pricing can't match Vistaprint. So she's doing a new design. And then the little part on the back where you actually write the address, she's looking at matching the background color, a very light version that she picks up from either the postcard or our logo. So they're going very artsy on us to say, well, you're going to pay a little bit more, but we're going to give you something a little bit special. But use what you have. Those postcards are wonderful. They are great. It's a new year, time for I like that they didn't redesign the whole postcard, that they only did a little redesign, going, why are we really going to tamper with success?
And the labels that you you download, they're in pages of 30?
They're either 20 or 30.
Okay,
people can
great.
choose, because some people are really attached to doing it one way and some the other, so you can decide.
Right.
Yeah, and just so you know, those old postcards you have, Arlene, those will last forever. We're not switching over to Katie's. We can keep using those ones, and
right.
It's a similar design. It's pretty much the same thing.
Right. And this is if you need more postcards. Yeah. Oh, yes. And will we address the third party candidate for governor? No, because we don't really address any of the candidates. We are all about the voters, not about the candidates. So no, we will not address Princess Blanding. She does have a right to run for governor. She certainly does. And it would have probably been different had either of the Jennifers prevailed and had they been the gubernatorial candidate. But the candidate that we have is unfortunately someone that has made many enemies of the people by being a corporatist, bringing pipelines into Virginia, bringing Amazon paying no taxes into Arlington or in Northern Virginia, and the rents went up 20 to 25%. That's a problem. Yeah. So, but it is what it is. The tickets are set. So we tell people these are the offices that they will be selecting. We don't tell them the candidates.
And we hope that we don't split.
Is probably the biggest danger that I see occurring this year, because you have very sophisticated voters in Northern Virginia and also in Hampton Roads, which is where Princess Blanding is from. And I can see many split tickets. Now, one of the things that is kind of sort of in our favor is many Republican women worked so closely with Democratic women on the Equal Rights Amendment that many of them may come over and vote for Hala, the candidate on the Democratic ticket, mainly because they know her as someone who was with them in the Equal Rights Amendment fight, and they don't know Winsome Sears. It's going to be interesting.
Can I just say, as a longtime resident of Virginia, I've actually never been as afraid about a Virginia election as I am this year. And it's partly because Virginia has done so well in the past couple of years in passing great legislation to protect voting rights and other issues. And we could lose it all in the fall. So if you're on the fence about doing postcarding, please help us.
Yes.
And yeah, I just, voter turnout is going to be so important this election. So.
Yes, yes. And we need to turn out voters who kind of haven't really been paying super close attention to what the governor's done in the past years. We've got the one governor running on a platform all about jobs. We have the other candidate for governor that no one ever sees. And when you do see him, he's basically denying that he had anything to do with pipelines. And it's like, why would you do that in the age of YouTube and video?
Mhm.
Not a good look. Lying is never a good look. Yeah, yeah, yes. I generally try not to use the fear word. This one, as I said, is going to be a very strange election. And this one has me very, very, very concerned. As long as we hold a House and we already have the Senate, we don't have a veto-proof majority. So that would mean we would have a year, maybe 2, maybe 4, where we wouldn't be able to pass the darn thing because the governor could veto everything. When Terry McAuliffe was governor, I had a incredible graphic that I found. He vetoed 111 bills while he was governor. That is the most bills vetoed by any governor in the history of the United States, let alone Virginia. All right. Well, it is 11 minutes after 9. Thank you all so very much for joining us. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, and let me see, is he still here? I won't make him be on camera. I'll let him hide. There is a new member of our team. His name is John Williams, and he does IT support for the Democracy Center. I was like, all right, fine. Just wanted everybody to know there is a new national team member. So with that, before I crash again, I'm going to stop the recording. Good night, everybody. It was so good to see you all.